I never imagined I'd be the center of a neighborhood saga that could rival a reality TV show, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. 3 months ago, after a grueling back surgery left me barely able to shuffle from my bed to the couch, my doctor insisted I hire a caregiver. Leaving alone in my quiet suburban home, I knew recovery would be impossible without help. After sifting through resumes and interviews, I found Elena, a warm, professional woman from Honduras who'd been a certified caregiver in the U.S. for over a decade. Her gentle demeanor and expertise were a lifeline, pulling me through the haze of pain and immobility. She was, in every sense, a blessing. Our neighborhood, nestled in a manicured corner of town, had always been orderly, if a tad pretentious. The Homeowners Association HOA, to those of us who whispered about its iron grip, was notorious for its rulebook thicker than a dictionary. Fences couldn't be an inch too tall, lawns had to be trimmed to a precise half-inch, and heaven forbid your trash cans lingered curbside past 7 a.m. I'd always played by the rules, keeping my nose clean and my property pristine, so I never had a run-in with the HOA. That is, until Margaret Hensley took the reins as HOA president 6 months ago. Margaret, or Marge the Enforcer, as the neighbors secretly called her, treated her role like she was guarding Fort Knox. Armed with a clipboard, a tape measure, and a camera that probably cost more than my car, she patrolled our streets daily, hunting for infractions. I'd seen her from my window, measuring a neighbor's grass with the precision of a surgeon, snapping photos of slightly askew mailboxes like she was building a case for the FBI. She was a force, and not the good kind. But I'd stayed off her radar until Elena came into the picture. It all kicked off on a muggy Tuesday afternoon. Elena had parked her unassuming hatchback in my driveway, as she did for her 8-hour shifts. I was mid-physical therapy, grimacing through stretches on a mat in my living room, when a sharp, insistent knock rattled the front door. Elena, ever composed, opened it to find Margaret standing there, her lips pursed so tightly they could have cracked walnuts. "This neighborhood has strict rules about cider vehicles," Margaret declared, her voice dripping with disdain, as if Elena's car was a junkyard relic. "Caregivers require a special permit from the HOA." I called out from my mat, wincing as I shifted. "There's no rule about caregiver permits, Margaret. I've read the bylaws cover to cover." Her eyes narrowed, and she brushed past Elena, stepping into my home Yunan vy Ted. "As president, I've enacted emergency protocols," she said, her tone implying I was a child who'd missed the memo. "All CRVYC personnel need proper documentation." Then she turned to Elena, speaking slowly, as if Elena couldn't grasp English. "Do you have documentation for being here?" Elena, with a grace I could only dream of, smiled politely. "I have my caregiver certification and ID, if that's what you mean." She reached for her purse, but Margaret cut her off. "That's not what I mean," she snapped. "I need your work visa. Your green card. We need to ensure everyone in this community belongs. The way she hissed, "belongs," sent a shiver down my spine, and not just from my surgical scars. I hauled myself up, ignoring the fire in my lower back. "That's out of line, Margaret, and possibly illegal. Elena's my employee, and her immigration status is none of your business or the HOA's. Now, if you'll excuse us, I have therapy to finish." Margaret's face flushed crimson, her nostrils flaring. "This isn't over," she spat, storming out. I thought that was just bluster, but I was wrong. The next morning, a neon orange violation notice was plastered to my door like a scarlet letter. The charges? My garden hose wasn't coiled properly. My mailbox was allegedly a half-inch too short, and most outrageously, unapproved CRVYC personnel posed a security risk. The fine? A cool $350. I snapped photos, measured my mailbox, regulation height, "thank you very much," and fired off a polite but firm email to the HOA board, demanding the fines be dropped. Margaret's reply was curt. The violation stood, backed by the board's unanimous decision. A sympathetic board member later tipped me off she'd never even consulted them. When Elena arrived that afternoon, her usual warmth was dimmed by worry. "Mr. Thomas, maybe I should step back," she said softly. "I don't want to cause you trouble." I shook my head. "Absolutely not. Margaret's abusing her power, and I won't let her bully you or me. We're in the right." For a week, things went quiet, and I dared to hope Margaret had found a new target for her wrath. But hope, it turns out, was naive. The following Monday, Elena called, her voice tight. She'd be late. Someone had left a note on her windshield at her apartment complex. When she arrived, she handed me a typed letter that made my blood boil. "Dear Sir VYC Provider," it read, "it has come to the attention of local immigration enforcement that an undocumented worker may be operating in our community. As a concerned citizen, I feel it's my duty to report such activities. Unless proper documentation is provided to the HOA office by Friday, authorities will be notified. This is not personal, just a matter of community safety." No signature, but the HOA letterhead and Margaret's pompous phrasing screamed her name. What Margaret didn't know was that Elena was a U.S. citizen, naturalized 5 years prior. And what she didn't know was that Elena's son, Daniel, was an agent with Immigration and Customs Enforcement IC. Furious but strategic, I asked Elena, "Do you have your naturalization certificate and passport?" She nodded. Copies in my car, originals at home." I grinned. "Mind if I call Daniel? We need his expertise." Within an hour, Daniel sat in my reviewing room, reviewing the letter with a calm that belied the storm brewing in his eyes. "This is serious," he said. "Impersonating federal authority, false claims about immigration enforcement, harassment, possible civil rights violations. It's personal because it's my mom, but I'll handle it by the book." He looked at me. "Will you help us document Margaret's actions?" I didn't hesitate. "What's the plan?" Daniel's plan was elegantly simple. He set up legal recording devices on my porch and in my reviewing room. Elena would keep working, and I'd log every encounter with Margaret. Meanwhile, Daniel would build a case with his colleagues. 2 days later, Margaret took the bait. She showed up during Elena's shift, flanked by 2 board members, Robert Klein and Linda Hayes, decent folks who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Margaret pounded on the door. "HOA inspection!" she barked. Before Elena could respond, Margaret barged in, her heels stabbing my hardwood floors. "We've had numerous complaints about unauthorized personnel and potential illegal activity here," she declared. "Numerous complaints?" I said, wheeling myself forward in the temporary chair I used for longer treks around the house. "From who?" Margaret waved a hand. "Confidentiality prevents me from saying, but as president, I'm obligated to investigate." She zeroed in on Elena. "Friday's deadline passed. Where's your documentation?" Robert cleared his throat. "Margaret, I'm not sure this is our place." She cut him off. "It's absolutely our place. The bylaws allow us to investigate threats to property values, and illegal workers qualify." She sneered at Elena. Linda looked horrified. "I didn't sign up for this." Margaret pressed on, undeterred. "My brother-in-law works with law enforcement. One call, and you're on a bus back to wherever you came from. But if you leave this neighborhood, I might forget what I've seen." I was stunned by her gall, but Elena stayed cool. "Ma'am, here's my documentation." She placed her U.S. passport on the coffee table. "I've been a citizen for 5 years." Margaret barely glanced at it. "That could be fake. You can buy those online." She reached for her phone. "Time to let the professionals handle this." "Great idea," I said, startling her with my calm. "We've got a professional right here." I hit a button on my phone, and Daniel stepped out from the kitchen, flashing his IC badge. "Agent Daniel Torres, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Ms. Hensley, I've been recording your interactions with my mother and Mr. Thomas. You've falsely claimed Immigration Enforcement Authority, harassed based on perceived national origin, and attempted to impersonate a federal officer. These are federal offenses. Margaret's face strained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Your mother saw? She stammered. Robert and Linda backpedaled, insisting they'd been told this was a routine inspection. Daniel's voice stayed steady. You're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As he cuffed her and led her to his vehicle, neighbors gawked from their lawns, her cries of, "I was protecting the neighborhood," echoing down the street. 3 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom as the judge handed down Margaret's sentence: 18 months probation, a due law 15,000 fine, 200 hours of community service with immigrant aid groups, and mandatory cultural sensitivity training. The CIVYL lawsuit I'd filed against her, and the HOA was pending, but her insurance had already refused to cover her defense, citing her intentional misconduct. At an emergency HOA meeting, Margaret was ousted as president, her pleas about property values falling on deaf ears. As the gavel fell, her reign of terror ended not with a bang, but with a whimper of disbelief that her power had crumbled. And me? I savored every second of it, knowing justice had turned the tables on the neighborhood's self-appointed queen.